So it is I, Kay Veers, here to talk about my 3 books. Earlier this year, I decided I wanted to put out a poetry collection. And over the past few months, I have watched the potential of that evolve really consistently to the point where it's just so much more than I had imagined. I had written about 100 poems and intended them to be the body of Plexi. And I had intended through the collection, for a storyline to surface periodically and then close with the book. That storyline has taken on a life of its own to the point where it doesn't really match a lot of the poetry that I have in the body of the book. So my idea now is to write new work for the body of Plexi that better reflects that storyline and the overall mood, and to take the body that I have now, those 100 poems from this year, and create a second collection, which has yet to be named. I just really realized that it needed to be 2 separate pieces earlier this week, so hence this video. So I expect I had expected Plexi to be published in 2018, but needing now to write so much more new material, I don't know when Plexi will make it to print. However, I could take the existing body that I want to turn into the second collection and start editing that and put it out first, but I'm not sure, because I think Plexi would be a better reflection of my face as a writer, especially as a first official publication. But the other book is essentially done, for lack of a title. And so that's where I am with the poetry collections. And my novel is called The Black Singularity. I am still writing it. It's taking me a really long time because novel writing is hard. I know some people can just pour words out all the time consistently, and I was once one of those people, but life changes and you can't always just sit down and write when it strikes. So there's a lot of note-taking on my phone and scribbling into books, and the great N.R. Shepard brought it to my attention that if you read shit, you're gonna write shit. And he's absolutely correct. So I've been trying to read more to continue to try to find my voice and be inspired by our literary forefathers. The Black Singularity, I'm not even sure how to explain the premise of this. There is a creature who has broken free of his world with his sibling. They are bred 2 at a time, male and females, for scientific experimentation and slavery. They escaped, and they need a certain protein in order to maintain their ability to function, and this was given to them by their masters, similar to Jurassic Park and the, what was the name of that? I can't remember, but the Black Singularity needs this, and it is produced by one flower, the corpse flower, on the planet Earth, and also in about 1 billion humans, in 1 in about every 1,000 breaths that are exhaled. So the Shadowcracker has his sibling stowed away, and she is very ill. And he has been harvesting the Zyvatine Quilide, as I like to call it, from one individual. And there is a connection with 3 other main characters, and I'm not really sure where else to explain how this goes. The Shadowcracker is being chased because he has escaped his homeworld. Excuse me. I'm not sure yet whether it'll be another planet or another plane. I'm trying to figure that out. What else? I'm building some storylines. There's a romantic interest there. I'm building some backstory on the main character. As far as him being an isolative personality and why, and his history, and his connection to yet another character, and her history, and the love interest actually came from a random prompt that I was just scribbling around with, and it turned into a really good, solid piece of what would be a good, solid piece of the story. I really have enjoyed prompts lately because it's so interesting to just be able to say, you know, I don't have a book with me here. Let's see. For example, when did you fall in love with him? Anne asked her mother. She wanted to know. She needed to know, especially on this day when blank. So I would say, you know, I could take that to the point of, you know, opening the book with the child of the main character and this love interest asking about how they met, and then the female starting to tell this story. You know what? I don't hate that. So let's just dog ear that. Who knows? But that's what I'm talking about. You never know what's going to come. Another one is, people give me credit. Excuse me. People give me credit for seeing what was coming, but I think it was more luck than anything else. I couldn't sleep, and I felt like going out for a drive. That's the truth. And it seemed like a normal, quiet night until blank. And again, looking at the bone structure of what I already have completed, I could easily see something. I mean, these prompts are worded very basically, so I would try to transmute that into something more fitting to my style. But, you know, you never know what's going to happen when you go out in the middle of the night for a drive, especially if there's a weird alien running around. And again, that's something that couldn't expand upon itself, and that's where I'm at. I have a lot of handwritten stuff. I don't know if I said this in this video or another video, but what I'm trying to do is, and a mistake that I had made previously with writing is, I'm not editing. I intend to write the linear storyline front to back, A to Z, end to end, and then go back and edit it. So I'm just writing out chunks of things and putting them in this binder with a loose outline, and with the intention, you know, I go back and read over it, but I don't change anything, and I try to go from there as I continue to write. And I've definitely had the issue where I start writing something and it's just, you know, this piece of writing isn't perfect, so before I can go further, I have to repair this. And that's absolutely a bad way to go for me personally, because I get sucked into a catch-22 black hole of never finishing the story. So I'm very excited to try this new method and see how far it'll take me. Something else that has become very important to me is reading. I've always liked to read, but I never realized how profound of an impact it will have on you as a writer. And I'm a really big fan of a writer I met on Instagram named N.R. Shepard, who recently came out with his first publication of poems, Bones and Roses. I intend to do a review video of this as well, but this is Bones and Roses, and it was Shepard's first publication, and as you can see, there's just dog ears out the ass in here. And this whole end of the book, I read all of this in one sitting in the bath, and it just went so amazingly quickly, I didn't even bother. Everything to dog ear, everything that came and fell to fruition through the book was just like being hit by a train, just every time I turned the page. And I would seriously recommend this book to anyone. It's rough, it's tough, it's unusual, it's not what you'd expect from poetry. And It's fantastic. But anyway, I was listening to Shepard talk the other day, and he says all the time, if you read shit, you're going to write shit. And it's absolutely true, because if you're not reading, your mind isn't absorbing all the possible facets of writing. And I absolutely feel that when I am not reading, my writing dips tremendously. So I've been trying to balance my production with my intake. And I have Shepard to thank for that. So yeah, go check out Bones and Roses. You can find Shepard on Instagram at n.r.shepard, S-H-E-P-H-E-R-D, just like this. It was a really great point that he made, and I absolutely, upon reflection, felt that he was absolutely correct. So reading is as big a part of writing as writing is, I think. And I think another thing that I've been struggling with through my life with my writing is consistency. And another thing that Shepard made clear in a very simple way was that the paper will not have anything on it until you put something on it, until you do something to it. And it's such a simple statement, but I think for a lot of people, it is important to recognize that fact, because you start to write and the story evolves in your mind, but then you don't show up to the desk to, again, take a line from Shepard. I'm just like Shepard fangirling over here. I don't know why. He's just had so much great stuff to say. Oh, excuse me. And I think that meeting him has really helped me structuralize my writing, and I'm very grateful to him for that. But anyway, showing up to your desk is so important, and I have tried to every day come down when I wake up and sit at my desk and ask myself, what am I doing today? What do I want to work on? What do I feel brewing? What has been brewing? Which things do I have notes of in my phone that, you know, struck me so hard at the moment, and then I forgot about it because it was not, I didn't have the time, or I couldn't, you know, whatever. So sometimes if I'm not feeling anything particular, I'll use a prompt. Sometimes I will pull the notes from my phone. Sometimes I will have a, excuse me, I'm sorry I'm doing all these mouth things. It's terribly unpleasant, I'm sure. But yeah, sometimes I'll have an epiphany in the bathtub or during a dream, or be inspired by a relationship in my life, and all of a sudden I just see it, and there it is. And sometimes I can sit down immediately and write it, and sometimes I can't, and I'm still trying to mediate that in my life, but I think it's going really well so far this year. The fact that I even can say that I'm writing 3 books seems a little incredible. It seems like a bit much to me when I hear myself say it. I feel like I should stick to one and just do that, but it happened so fast. All of that poetry just flew out of me, and some of the best work I've ever done. So, like I said earlier, I have 1 book that's pretty much ready to go, besides some editing and needing a title. And then Plexi needs to be fleshed out tremendously, but Plexi came first, and now they've switched. So that's how I got 2 from 1, and I've had this novel brewing for a couple of years, and now it has started to pour out as well. So it's almost as if the books have come to me. And even though I feel strange saying I'm writing 3 books, that's what's happening. You know, I was on Facebook the other day, and I clicked on a thread that the title was, you know, what are you writing this year? What is your publication goal? And someone had said, I have 6 books coming out this year. And I was like, listen to this clown. And, you know, what are they, 4 pages long? Like, get the fuck out of here. And intrigued with, you know, condescension, I clicked into his profile, and what he has done is quite brilliant. He had written these 6 books over the past 8 years, and is now going to roll them out a few months apart. And for an unknown, I mean, that's really brilliant. I mean, you've established your following over that long of a time. People are ready, people are waiting, and to have the ability to throw out a 300-page book and have people clamoring for it, and then in 6 months' time, let them salivate and then throw out another one, and he can just... It's like those movies, the guys that did all those films that came out, what were they called? 40-Year-Old Virgin and Superbad and Pineapple Express and all of those films was like the same 10 guys or whatever, and they made all those movies, I think, in under a year, and they've just been slowly doling them out one at a time, and they've just become massive hits. And I can't imagine what it's like to just sit in your living room and every year just put something out and watch the cash come flying in. I bet that's what Stephen King feels like. Anyway, speaking of Stephen King, something interesting happened. I have read almost every Stephen King book that there is. I read Stephen King for almost 20 straight years, starting when I was 10 years old. And I was a huge, huge fan. And I still respect his talent as a writer. He absolutely engages my attention. But I feel like after his accident, his perspective changed, his writing style changed, which is obviously to be expected after a near-death experience. But I didn't like as much a lot of the newer material. But he came out with a book called Mr. Mercedes a few years ago, and it was fantastic. It was utterly fantastic. And then he came out with part 2, Finders Keepers, I believe, which was also excellent. And then there was a 3rd book. And I'm kind of heartbroken because within the first 10 pages, I put it down and I will never read it. And I'm just so disappointed. And I kind of like, when he comes out with a new book at this point, I'll like open it to the middle and read a little bit. And sometimes I'm caught and sometimes I'm not. But it was kind of sad to lose this person who I had been so thoroughly ensconced in the writing of. There's a janky statement for you. But I had loved him like my own father, I think, for many years. And as I changed and as he changed, I think I grew apart from his writing. And it's kind of sad. So, why was I talking about Stephen King? Some kind of writing tangent. I would recommend his book on writing, his nonfiction book about writing called On Writing, to anyone that is a writer, whether you like horror or Stephen King or not, because no matter what I have to say about how I fell off from his work, that book took me 6 or 7 times to get through because I was so ridiculously inspired by what he was saying that I put his book down and went to work on something of my own. It also really stuck out to me, the copy I had a very nice bulkhead cellar door on a beautiful house with some beautiful flowers and some beautiful siding. And it's a very nice script over the center of the book, and it's just very quaint. But if you know Stephen King, you know that I believe it was his grandmother's bulkhead basement was the scariest place of his life, and that he was terrified of velociraptors coming out from under the stairs to eat him. If you've ever seen the movie It, when Georgie goes into the basement to get the wax, that was Stephen King going down the basement stairs as a child. But On Writing was fantastic, and if I have any sense, I'll read it again, because I need it. It's time. The words are coming, and I want it all to be perfect. And, you know, the way Plexi has flip-flopped with this unknown title and how that's going to go, and the way that the Singularity is shaping up, I'm just trying to take in everything that I can to give myself as much knowledge as possible and as many options as possible as far as how I want to put these books forth. I have no idea which one of the poetry collections will come first. Probably the unknown one. I think I might have to hold Plexi back. And as far as the novel, the Singularity, 2020, I think. I think in 2 years' time I will have a very fine book, and that will be enough time for me to give it the love and attention that it deserves. And I want to be very proud of what I put out. I don't want to rush it so I can say that I did it. And the other thing is, I want to write an adult novel. A lot of the writers I'm encountering are young adult writers, and it's always been that way. I kind of feel like, what's a good comparison? Have you ever heard the phrase, those who can't teach? You know, if you cannot do a thing, you teach about it. I kind of feel like it's the same with fiction. Like, if you can't write a book that'll keep an adult audience enthralled, you write young adult fiction instead, or children's books, which isn't really fair to say even, because children's books have been being written by some of the most amazing minds that have ever graced this earth, and but those are the true heroes. So I redact my statement about the children's books, but I don't want to write a young adult novel. I want to write an adult novel, like a full-grown person over 30 will read this. I've also been working on some short stories here and there. I had I don't know what to call it besides the ever tacky erotica title, strike me the other day, and I wrote out about 3 or 4 pages worth of a start for a short story, so I'll probably keep going with that. And I'm trying to focus more on the idea that it's okay to write short, that everything doesn't have to be a novel if it's not a poem, that I can write short pieces and just see where they develop from. As far as the Singularity goes, earlier this year I went through all the writing I had ever done, and I round-filed most of it, and I have it for posterity and memory's sake, but none of it will be published. And among the things that made it to the end was the Black Singularity, but there were also 4 more short stories that, or incomplete stories, that I think have a lot of potential. So those are in a file on my desk, but I'm not ready to get into them yet. And, but they are there. So there's even more things that are possible here. And I guess the most interesting thing about that for me is that one of them is a horror story, but it's so scary, I can't write it. I live alone in the woods with my husband, and like, to get the best effect on this piece, I would absolutely have to just sit here alone in the dark and write it. But after like 10 pages, I'm just like, no, I don't want to. Somewhere along the line, I read the line, to write what you know. Like, if you don't live in Paris, it's going to be really hard to write a story set in Paris unless you've either been there or have exceptional Googling skills or know someone who lives there, unless you have a source of information. Like, you know, what flowers are native to the area? What are, you know, some of the lesser known streets that are aesthetically identifiable there, you know, stuff like that. So that horror story comes from some of my own deepest fears, irrational though they may be. They are horrifying. And I want to write this story so bad because I know that I have enough in me because of the true fear behind it to really make it a banger. But like I said, I have to sit down and do that. And just thinking about some of those scenes right now, I'm very uncomfortable. But I want to write what I know, and I know how to be afraid of that thing. And I would really like to see that come to fruition as well. That one was called The Window. What else was in there? Uh-oh, the monster's coming. It's clawing at my door. I guess that's it. There was a couple more things I could talk about, but I have so much on my plate already. I should just leave it alone. Also, my dog wants my attention. But, so there it is. I have the one poetry collection that turned into 2 poetry collections, and I have the novel and the awesome progression of it, which has totally bowled me over. And I have so many people I can thank for inspiring me and showing me these, you know, like Shepherd, these very simplistic things like consistency and writing what you know, and don't read shit because you're gonna write shit. That was an excellent realization for me. So yeah, I think that's all. That's the complete update, as I have removed all the other videos that I had up because it was just rambling and nonsense. But yep. That is my 3 books. That is where I'm at with them. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on YouTube, on my channel. And I'm not sure what to say to close my videos. I never have. I think I should come up with some kind of wacky saying or something stupid like, you know, wing-a-zing-a-zoo-zoo, and then just cut it. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see. Oh, real quick, let me talk about this symbol. When I was a teenager, I was in a band, and this symbol started out much more simplistically, and it was something I would draw with eyeliner over my left eye as I would play bass, and we would do shows or whatever, and we didn't last very long. It was a high school band. It did what high school bands do and dissolved quickly, but the symbol stayed. And in recent weeks, all these years later, I mean, that's 12 years at this point, 14 years at this point, I have this tattooed on the back of my neck, actually, the simplistic version of this, but I updated it with the V that you see there since I've been married, and I actually have my initials, my maiden name throughout this whole thing here. So, let's see. So right here, you can see the K. K. Let me not draw on this. And here we have the M. And then there's S. And you notice this corner is not connected. Also, the Kindis name that I use as my handle on Instagram is present here. We have the K, the I, an N. Where was the D? Oh, D. U. S. How about that? So I decided instead of my face being everywhere, and with my videos and my live streams and all the things that I've been doing, instead of focusing on me, the focus should be on my words. But I still wanted to be able to identify my material when it was present. So we're just going to keep this in the background somewhere, everywhere, and as icons and whatever. So that's what the story of this is. It's been with me for a long time. I'm very satisfied with this updated version that, you know, contains all those other things. So yeah, that's that. Thanks for coming by. Wing-a-wing-a-zoo-zoo.